Right, so I want to talk about something that most health videos get completely backwards. They start with the weight. They show you a man standing on a scale, looking defeated, and they say, right, here is your problem, here is your solution, off you go. As if the weight just appeared one morning like an unwanted houseguest who turned up with no warning and absolutely no intention of leaving. But that is not how it happened. Not for most men I know. Not for me. The weight was not the beginning of the story. The weight was when the story finally became visible. And there is a version of this I want my boys to understand before life teaches them the expensive version. Because by the time the weight arrived, honestly, a lot had already quietly changed. Energy, sleep, confidence, movement, the slow background enjoyment of just being in your own body. All of that had been drifting for a while before anything actually showed up in the mirror. So this is not a video about losing weight. I want to be clear about that. This is a video about the slow drift that happens to men in their 30s and 40s, often without them fully noticing, and how the thing you can eventually see is rarely the thing that started it. Stay with me, because this is where it gets interesting. I have got a mate, decent bloke, not a disaster by any means. Works hard, good dad, solid husband. And about 4 years ago, we were at a barbecue, and he was standing there with a beer, perfectly cheerful, and I thought, right, when did he start looking tired? Not ill, not enormous, just tired, worn, like a man who was getting through things rather than enjoying them. I did not say anything, obviously, because we are British and we would sooner set ourselves on fire than have that conversation. But I recognised something in it, because I had my own version of the same thing happening around the same time. And here is the honest bit. It did not start with the weight. It started earlier, and it started quietly. And it started with things that were all individually understandable. That is the bit that catches men out. Not one enormous catastrophic decision, just a long series of small ones, each of which made perfect sense at the time. It started with the job. Not a bad job, just a busy one. The kind of busy that is fine until it is not. Longer hours, more commuting, sitting at a desk for 9 hours and feeling genuinely surprised when you stand up and your back immediately registers a formal complaint. The walk at lunchtime stopped first, then the evening run, gradually, then totally. It started with having children. Again, not a complaint. I love my boys. But anyone who tells you that having small children does not change everything, including sleep, diet, time, energy, and the concept of doing anything solely for yourself, has either not had them yet or has completely blanked it out for self-preservation. Suddenly, you are surviving. You are eating whatever is fastest. You are sleeping in whatever fragments the universe allows. You are drinking more coffee than any reasonable person should consume and calling that a coping strategy, which, it turns out, it is not. It started with the sofa. The sofa is a deeply underappreciated villain in the story of middle-aged male health, because the sofa does not feel like failure. The sofa feels like reward. You have worked hard all week. The sofa is the prize. You sit down on a Thursday evening with a glass of something and a bag of something else and you think, right, I deserve this. I genuinely do. And you do. That is the annoying bit. You probably do. But then it is Friday, and then Saturday, and then somehow it is 4 months later and the sofa has quietly become the default setting, and the walking stopped. Not all at once, gradually. The Saturday morning walk with the dog, the 10 minutes in the evening, the decision to take the stairs instead of standing in the lift, making awkward eye contact with someone from accounts, all of it slowly voted off the island. The not moving is a decision. It just never feels like one. The food changed too, and again, I want to be clear here, this is not about weakness. This is about tiredness and time and the incredible persuasive power of a takeaway app when you have been at work since 7 and the children have been extremely energetic in a specifically exhausting way and you genuinely cannot face the kitchen. One Friday becomes every Friday. Every Friday becomes most of the week. The beige food creep. You are aware of it on some level, but it is so gradual that there is never a single moment where you think, right, this is the decision point. You are just eating slightly worse than you used to, then quite a bit worse, then the kind of worse that you would describe, if asked, as fine. Sleep got worse, which made everything else harder. Less sleep meant more tiredness, which meant less motivation to move, which meant worse sleep, which meant more tiredness. That particular circle is remarkably easy to fall into and absolutely miserable to get out of. And then there was the alcohol. Not alcoholism, I want to be careful here. Just the habit of a couple of beers in the evening that somehow became the only guaranteed part of the day that was yours. The only bit nobody needed anything from you. You and the television and something from the fridge and the quiet. That is not a moral failing. That is a man who has run out of recovery time and is using the least complicated tool available. But all of this, every single bit of it, happened before the weight arrived. The weight was the symptom. The drift was the disease. And the reason most men do not catch it early is that none of it feels dramatic enough to act on. Your trousers are a bit tighter. Fine. You are breathing a bit harder going up to the next floor. Fine. You are tired by 8 in the evening. Fine. You do not really fancy going out on the weekend anymore? Also fine. Nothing crosses a threshold. Nothing triggers the alarm, because the alarm has been gradually recalibrated by the drift. Your normal has shifted, and you have shifted with it, so you cannot feel the gap anymore. You adapt to the slow version. That is the trap. And here is the bit I find most human about all of this. Most men, at some point during the drift, know. Not clearly, not in a way that feels urgent, but somewhere in the background there is this low hum of, I should probably sort this out. I should sleep better. I should move more. I should stop eating the large portion when I know full well the medium was enough. And they tell themselves, and I told myself, that they will sort it out when life calms down, when this project finishes, when the kids are slightly older, when things at work settle, when January comes. When January comes. As if January is some magical reset portal rather than just a slightly gloomy Monday in winter, when the bin bags all blow down the street and nothing actually changes unless you deliberately change it. Life does not calm down. That is not me being bleak. That is just true. The busyness does not create a natural gap where you can slot your healthy habits back in. You have to make the gap. You have to protect it. And most men do not, because nobody told them they needed to, and because the cost is invisible until suddenly it very much is not. I want to say something here, and I mean it. If any of this sounds familiar, that does not make you lazy. It does not make you weak. It does not make you a bad husband or a bad dad or a bad man. It makes you human. It makes you someone who was tired and busy and responsible, and who kept putting himself last because it felt like the right thing to do for everyone else. That generosity is not the problem. The problem is that you cannot be any of those things, the husband, the dad, the bloke people rely on, properly, if you have been slowly running the engine down for 5 years without ever lifting the bonnet. The energy costs real. The confidence costs real. The capability costs real. I am talking about standing up after a long car journey and feeling like you have aged 15 years in 3 hours. I am talking about your kid wanting you to kick a ball around and you agreeing but quietly dreading it because you know by the end you will be beetroot coloured and lying in the garden pretending you are inspecting the grass. I am talking about avoiding mirrors, avoiding photographs, wearing the same 3 comfortable things because at least those still feel like yours. That is not about aesthetics. That is about losing yourself a bit at a time. The weight arrived last, but it cost the most. So, the way back. And this is where I want to be boring on purpose, because the boring version is the one that actually works. You do not need a plan. You do not need a program. You do not need to sign up for anything, buy anything, or announce anything to anyone. Men who announce it in January and then go quiet by March have taught me that lesson thoroughly. You need a walk, a proper one, outside. Every day if you can, most days if you cannot. Not a training walk, just a walk. 20 minutes. The kind of distance where you are out long enough that your head starts to settle a bit. You need slightly better sleep. Not perfect sleep, just earlier. An hour earlier. Turn the television off while it still feels annoying to do so, rather than when you have already run out of evening. You need to start eating food that your body actually recognizes as food. Not all of it, most of it. One decent meal a day if that is where you are starting. Not as a diet, just as maintenance. And you need to move. Not the gym necessarily. Not weights and protein shakes and a color-coded schedule. Just move. Walk further. Take the stairs. Kick the ball with your kids for longer than is comfortable. Carry something. Fix something. Get up off the floor without thinking about it as a project. None of this is impressive. I know that. That is the point. Small choices built the drift. Small choices can start reversing it. The gap between the man you were and the man you want to be is not as wide as it feels from the sofa, but you do have to get up. Boys, if you ever watch this, I hope you never need it. I hope you are the kind of people who stay connected to your bodies just naturally, who sleep well and eat well and move without having to think about it. I genuinely hope that. But if you ever find yourself standing in the bathroom at 43, looking at yourself under that terrible strip light, wondering when the drift happened, knowing you have been saying you will sort it out since before your youngest was born, I want you to know that it is not too late. It is never where you think it started, and the way back is smaller than it looks. The wait may have been the last thing to arrive, but it can also be the first signal that it is time to come back to yourself. And that is not a bad place to start.